Hi everybody, and welcome along to this evening's Q&A. I hope you're all good. I'm going to give it a second just to see if everyone can hear me all right. If you can, perhaps if you could just type a comment in the box for me, that would be useful, just to let me know that you can hear me. I'm going to stick another light on because it seems pretty dark in here, so just give me a second. There we go. That's a bit brighter. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. So I'm just going to fire away on this because we're going to record and upload this afterwards for everyone else to have a look at as well. The basis of this evening is really about me giving you guys an update on our 2023 race season. There are a few changes to the way we're going to do things this year. Nothing major, nothing drastic, and a lot of this is already on the website. But for those of you that are entered into our events, it might be of interest. But really, this is more about you guys and the questions you might have. And we're seeing a lot of the same questions popping up online. And I'm just aware that the easiest way to get the information out there might just be to discuss it openly. So hopefully this is useful. So first things first, obviously we've got a full race season up ahead. We're starting with our first event in just over 2 weeks' time, 100 Hills 50K, and that's a brand new race for us. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that one, and then what I'll do is touch on the races that have actually got changes coming for this year that we haven't seen before. I'm not going to touch on every race because a lot of them are just the same old format, and we know it works. We know you guys love it. We know how to do it safely and successfully. So no dramatic overhaul needed. But there's some overview stuff as well, some stuff that impacts all of the events that's well worth being aware of. So 100 Hills first. That race begins and finishes at Stoner Deer Park and is an awesome location. The other benefit is that runners travel back through there halfway through the race. So what we've got is the perfect situation for us as organisers, not quite maybe as perfect as Wendover, but we get to see you off, we get to see you back at halfway, and then we see you finish again. The course is just brilliant. Drew Sheffield is responsible for most of it, as those of you who know already. Drew is also responsible largely for the Wendover Woods Loop and the Chiltern Wonderland 50. And anyone who's run those courses will know just what an amazing job he does of putting these routes together. It's really is awesome. There are 2 checkpoints out on Loop 1 and 2 checkpoints out on Loop 2. You'll be completely catered for as usual with a fully stocked checkpoint at each location. They're all indoors, although if the weather is good, we have plans to sort of set up just out the front of each of them. When you come back through Stoner, you'll come into the Deer Park, which is the reverse direction of the way you run through it on the Chiltern Wonderland course. And you'll come through the marquee where there'll be the full checkpoint. You'll then go out on Loop 2, and then you'll come in and finish right in front of the marquee. The marquee will be set up almost identically to Wendover for those of you who've done that race before. And we'll have a full aid station that will then be converted into a finish area. Other stuff that you need to know, registration's just on race day morning, not on the Friday. There's no overnighting in Stoner Deer Park on the Friday at all. So just come down Saturday morning. And it'll open at 7 o'clock. We'll have you all registered and fitted with trackers by 10 to 9. Then there'll be a very short race briefing from me, and we'll shoot straight off from right next to the marquee. The marquee, the start, finish, and the parking is just inside the gates to the Deer Park. You won't be able to miss it. The parking is right next to the marquee as well, so super easy access. On site, you'll find XL Coffee. They'll be doing their usual job, which is just fantastic. And Paul Alban, who's new with us last year, became RD of the North Downsway 50 and Wendover Woods 50. He's managed to get an Indian food provider down for the day. I forget the name off the top of my head, but I'm pretty excited about that. You will, of course, be looked after with the usual hot food and drinks at the finish that we provide you free. But for any friends or family knocking around, they can access XL Coffee and the Indian food that's on sale. Worth knowing if you've got family, but the play area and cafe at the back of Stoner Deer Park, so right up past the incredible Manor House, will be serving, open and serving. So if you've got family who might want to stick around and watch you through halfway or come to the finish and come down a bit early, there's stuff for them to do there as well, which is pretty great. Okay. The other thing with 100 Hills is we're trialing this new thing where we're doing patches alongside the medals. I've shared a few pictures of those online over the past couple of weeks. But at the finish, everyone will be given their medal and a patch. There are no T-shirts at the 50K. That's not part of what we're doing this year. But we're hoping those patches might catch on a bit. But we'd be really interested to hear your feedback and how we're interested to see how they get used. Are people going to maybe start using them on finish line bags or drop bags or on jackets or items of clothing? From my point of view, it's a really great option to reduce the waste and impact from the races. If we can start doing away with some of the race T-shirts, we will always offer the race T-shirt option for the longer events. But if you choose to in future, you can just have a patch instead. It's something we're just trialing at 100 Hills this year, but from 2024 onwards, look out for the patches for all the races. Okay, South Downs Way 50. 8th of April, no changes. For any of you that have run that race before, you won't find anything different to normal, with one minor exception. There will be no Stuart March at the finish line, and there will be no Stuart March at any finish line this year, which is a great shame. Stu has shot every single race for us since the North Downs Way in 2011. However, it's happy news, really, because Stu has found a new career with the ambulance service. He literally messaged me today with a picture of him celebrating with a nice pint of beer. He's just been confirmed as he's taken on a completely different career path, and we wish him the very best with that, obviously. But it means no finish line buckle photo. What we have done instead is created this backdrop, because Stu warned us this was going to happen, created this backdrop that you can have your photo taken up against. So it'll be a Centurion Running backdrop. And we'll either grab your iPhone or Android, whatever, take a photo of you at the finish for you, or we can take a snap and send it to you via email. If you want to do that on the spot, that's fine. Obviously, it means no professional photo at the finish for you to buy afterwards, but hopefully this is really good, really works well and is a good idea to kind of replace Stu. What we did last year and what we're doing going forward is shooting you all out on course via our photography team headed up by Pierre Pape, who is further.run on Instagram and is a sensational photographer. And all of the photos of you running out on course are free. You know, we take them as part of your event package, and we'll be continuing to provide them to you literally the day after the race. If it's a 100-miler, you need to let Pierre go to bed and get some sleep first. It will be the Monday, but we'll provide those to you free of charge, give you a link to it on the website and via the race report and results, and you'll be free to download and share at your heart's content. So we're not replacing Stu at the finish. It just wouldn't be the same without him. We are doing the backdrop thing for photography, and you'll get access to photos of yourself running out on course at least one location, hopefully many, via Pierre and our website post each race. Track 100, well, there's only 15 of you in it, and I doubt many of you are watching this video, so I'm going to skip straight from the Track 100. But needless to say, as always, please come down and watch the Track 100 if you want to be truly inspired by the very best of the best, duking it out of 400 plus laps of the track. Come down to Bedford International Athletic Stadium, April the 22nd. Kicks off early in the morning on the Saturday, and the excitement really builds through till lunchtime, early afternoon, when the records start going down. We don't have any confirmation yet of Alexander Sorokin or Camille Heron or Dominika Stelmach coming back at the moment, these world-class international athletes. That's not to say they won't. They tend to decide these things at the last minute. What we have got is a field of incredible British athletes. I personally think it's highly likely we're going to see some British overall records tumble, especially on the women's side, dare I say it. And it's so inspiring to watch. So come on down to the track on the 22nd of April. Right, Thames Path. And this one perhaps has more questions about it and more potential issues to be aware of. Nothing major, but things that you guys need to be aware of and that we'll be sharing as we get closer to race day. The Thames Path is always a bit of a tricky one, just because it goes through so many urban areas. It's very wealthy down by the river, if we're totally honest. Some of the crowd of people hanging out on the river don't always appreciate long distance runs coming down the towpath. But ours is a small race, has been sustainable. I think this is year, 12? And we do love it. It's not easy, but it is fun, and it's fast. So a few things first. Maybe the predominant question we're being asked at the moment is, it's the coronation weekend. Obviously, the coronation was announced well after we launched the race. How is that going to impact things on race day? And the short answer is, it's not until it does. Every single landowner, including the start of Richmond, Henley, who have big party planned on Mill Meadows, where our checkpoint is, earlier on Saturday, before our race checkpoint gets in situ, all the way through to Oxford, every landowner has given us permission to proceed. Nobody's thrown a spanner in the works and said, oh, by the way. So we fully intend to go ahead as normal. Obviously, the coronation coincides with the very first part of the race, but then it runs on through the rest of the weekend. And now you guys get the bonus of a bank holiday Monday to recover afterwards. What happens in terms of road closures or access being difficult to some areas, we can't foresee that. We're being told by the Thames Path National Trail Officer of anything they see coming that might affect the day. They know we're on. They know the coronation coincides with it. Incidentally, we're not the only event happening on the Thames Path that weekend either. So everything's signed off. We will proceed as normal. If anything throws a fly in the ointment, we will let you know. And obviously, we will try and communicate it to you as early as possible so you can inform your crews, friends, and family of any changes that need to be made out on course. But none are anticipated. What we can anticipate, unfortunately, are a few diversions. Now, 3 diversions have hit the Thames Path over the years. One has been Benson Lock, which has been a weak structure for a long time, is now shut again, which means after Wallingford checkpoint and mile 77, you're going to have to cross the bridge, the road bridge, and then travel up the eastern side of the river to Benson Lock rather than the western side. The difference is negligible in terms of mileage. It's flat. Okay. Hi, Spencer. So don't worry about that one particularly. It doesn't really add anything. All of these, of course, will be marked to death by our team. So don't worry about, and the GPX will be updated in due course. We haven't updated the GPX yet because there are 2 other changes that haven't been confirmed that we want to include at the same time. We don't want to be launching a new GPX every week and telling you guys about it. So Benson Lock will definitely be closed on race day, and the diversion will be up the eastern side of the river. Don't worry about the additional distance. It is negligible. The second closure was in place last year, and it's the Weir after Henley checkpoint. The good news is there was quite a long diversion in place last year because the Weir was closed on the Friday before race day, unbeknownst to us. We only found out when our course marker went out and found that he couldn't cross the Weir. So nobody gave us any prior warning. Henley Town Council, the Thames Path National Trail, they didn't know about it. It was just closed by the Environment Agency like that on the Friday. This time we've had a year's notice. But the diversion is tiny, and we are now allowed to cut through. A very generous landowner has let the Thames Path be diverted across their property just south of the river and just south of the actual Thames Path. So whilst last year's diversion was fairly substantial, it was well over a mile and included a hill, this year it will be shorter and it will be basically a cut through the land right next to the Thames Path. The third diversion, we haven't had confirmation on a date on, and it has existed before. It is Temple Lock or Temple Bridge, just past Marlow and just before Hurley checkpoint, about mile 43 on the course. This has been closed in recent years several times because the foundations, the underpinning of the bridge has been weakened. They've ascertained that the entire bridge needs to be basically decommissioned and replaced. It's really bad news because it's a beautiful structure. In fact, it's the big wooden bridge that you see on a lot of the race images we share. The diversion, if it's in place, will be across the bridge at Marlow and along the south side of the river. We've had to do it before. If we have to do it again, we will. It does make the course marginally longer. There's nothing we can do about it. We will communicate if that has to go in place. So Benson Lock's definite, Henley's definite, both extremely minor. Temple Lock, we're not sure about yet. We will confirm in due course. There's one other change to Thames Path, the 5th thing, I'm afraid. It makes no odds to your day. The checkpoint will be moving from Wallingford Rowing Club on Thames Street to Wallingford Baptist Church, also on Thames Street. Wallingford Baptist Church is actually the checkpoint location we use for the out and back of the Autumn 100 through there. So it's a well-known location to us and to most of you as runners. It's less than 400 metres further down the road than the rowing club. So we won't be changing the cut-off, and it'll make no difference to your day whatsoever. We still don't allow crew there because it's just very quiet residential area, and we've had bad press there before from neighbours. So tiny change, that one. Nothing really to worry about. And as I say, one final time, if anything happens with the coronation that derails the Thames Path plans, we will confirm it to you. Okay. Oh, what happens after Thames Path? North Downsway 50. No change. All good. Going ahead as normal. 2 waves this year, which will be great. It worked last year really well. We're doing that again this time out. We'll allocate the waves 4 weeks plus prior to race day, and you'll be able to see which wave you're in, and that should all be pretty straightforward. South Downsway 100. Oh, by the way, all the races I've discussed so far are sellouts. There's no available entries for any of those events, and that's great. Thanks for the support. We really don't take it for granted. Caveat: if you fancy a crack at the track 100 and you meet the qualification standards, we can definitely squeeze a few more of you in on that one. South Downsway 100. Very unusually, we still have places available. It's about 81% sold, I think. There's about 500 of you in the race, so it's pretty big. But we want 500 starters this year, which is growth of about 15% on 2022. Doesn't happen, that's fine. It's still a big race. But we have this incredible location at the start, Matterley Bowl, that's just made for this kind of the expansion of the race. A lot of the checkpoints on the South Downsway are really big open areas, farmers' fields where there's excellent crew parking. If you look at it, Queen Elizabeth Country Park, and then at Cocking, and then at Houghton Farm, and then Washington, and on and down the trail, there's these great locations that you guys can get into if you have got crews, and we can put these expansive checkpoints in. And obviously, there are some absolutely enormous races that happen on the South Downsway. We're never going to make a 800,000 person South Downsway 100, but we think we're leaving it open to allow 500 of you to start. So there's probably about 120, 130 places left for that race before the natural cancellations bring us down to that number. So if you want to run 100 with us and the South Downsway, it's open and ready for you. There are no changes to that race at all. Everything is as it was before. We've had a really nice period now on the South Downsway where all the checkpoint managers know and love us. We enjoy really good relationships with landlords. So nothing's changing. Everything will be as it has been in the past. The kids' race on the Friday night remains the biggest fixture of South Downsway weekend. Don't forget that one. Right. The big change for this year for our calendar. Wendover became Wendover Woods Weekender. We've pulled the 50 from November away from the boggy flooded field, and we've merged everything together between July the 7th and the 9th, 2023. We're holding what we're calling Wendover Weekender. Now, I'm just going to cover the weekend, what the schedule is and how it's going to work, and then talk to you about the add-ons, the things beyond the races. So Friday at 10 o'clock, the 100-miler starts. 10 loops of our Wendover course, not for the faint of heart. We're expecting 50 starters maximum. We've run it twice before, both times 50 starters. I think we've given out less than 5 sub-24-hour buckles for this race in the past. We're really hoping there's some more, but we're really hoping we welcome more than 50% of the people over the finish line, which we never have done at this race. Kind of to buoy the 100-milers through the night, we're opening what we're calling the event village and the camping on the Friday afternoon. So 100-milers can get in early Friday, set a tent up, park up, start the race in peace and get a few laps under their belt. The event village opens in the evening. There's a full schedule on the website. On Friday evening, there'll be guest speakers and exhibitors in place and food concessions and all of that stuff. So come down, camp, cheer the 100 milers on. They'll really, really be grateful for that. And you can hang out, listen to some awesome guest speakers. We're dropping the lineup as people confirm, and you can see that on the speakers and exhibitors tab on the website. It's literally being updated daily at the moment. We've got everything from Dan and Charlotte, Dan Lawson with his nomadic sauna coming up. You can buy a sauna pass for the weekend. How good is that? Through to Ali Bailey, Dan and myself running the speakers tent, and we'll be introducing guest speakers. There might even be some live podcasting going on. We've got our coaches, our team, some other athletes, some inspiring stories, and some members of our community doing a little community gathering too. Green runners are on site. There's a climate relay happening. There's demo gear from the speakers and exhibitors and brands that we partner with. Our shop will be in situ. There'll be loads going on, and it's just a great place to hang out up there. Of course, the woods are open around the clock, so you can go in for a run. You can go and test gear out in the woods. You could go and do park run on the Saturday morning, go and frequent the cafe in the woods. It's just going to be hopefully a brilliant time. We'll lay on toilets. We're working on laying on showers. There'll be masses of camping space. You can park really nearby the race HQ. So that's all good. Saturday, 50 miler starts at 9 in the morning, or 9:30, actually 9:30, just to avoid park run. So they'll be joining in with the tail end of the 100, which would be great. And that will be the busiest period for sure. The speakers and stuff will be happening Saturday afternoon as well. So even if you're not in the 50 miler, still come down on Saturday, see your friends, cheer them on, and hang out in the village. And then Saturday night's the 50k, the night 50k, now into its third or fourth year. Such a popular race with people either looking to experience something different, running at night, particularly preparing for races later in the year. 100 milers or mountain races where there's a lot of overnight running. It's just one of those very few opportunities to get a proper nighttime run in a race format. And the woods at night are awesome because it's this like bubble of, I don't know, you can't see very far, and it feels pretty special in there, to be honest. It's just an incredible set of trails, and it's just a really magical experience for us to watch as much as it is for you guys to run. Sunday morning, the main event, the kids' races. There'll be a under 12s and then an under 18s race. And there's a 10 miler. And this is the key one, really. This is the first time we've ever organised anything under a marathon distance for people who aren't adults. And we just basically, it's such a cool loop. We wanted to give everyone the chance to experience it. We set a 4-hour cutoff. So even if you're a walker, not a runner, or you've got friends or family who are walkers but not runners, bring them down, get them out on that 10-mile loop. They won't regret it. It's just so much fun. It will just blow people's minds. What's really pleasing is a lot of the people signing up for that race are friends, family, partners, loved ones, siblings, whatever of our running community. People who've always been around the races but never had a chance to run with us before in person. So this is the opportunity to do that. And Sunday morning, we'll be wrapping up, obviously, with the guest speakers and what have you running through to lunchtime. That's pretty much it for Wendover. We're really excited about bringing everyone together. Over the course of the 3 days, it will be a lot of people on site, but I think it will feel quite special for those running in terms of there being a lot more support around than normal and plenty going on for everybody who's not necessarily just interested in running a race. Okay, North Downs Way 100, one big change. We are having issues with permissions for the Holly Hill, Bluebell Hill checkpoints. Okay, and we've been having issues there for a long time, particularly because of a resident next to the route, the Holly Hill checkpoint. Access in there is difficult. There's a height barrier to both car parks. Bluebell Hill, as we know at night, isn't the best anyway. So we have made the executive decision to finally consolidate those checkpoints to a new location with better access. Okay, so we are moving away from using Holly Hill and Bluebell Hill, and are relocating that into one central checkpoint at Ranscombe Farm Reserve. For those of you that have run the race before, Ranscombe Farm Reserve is just before the Medway crossing. And you wouldn't know that necessarily there was infrastructure there, but there's some buildings there just before the car park in Cuxton. where there's toilets and there's a few more facilities for the volunteers, which they'd be really grateful for. Bearing in mind, Holly Hill and Bluebell Hill have no water, no power, no toilets. They're just not great locations anyway. This is a much better option for all of us. What does that mean? It means that the gaps are bigger but better spaced, right? So pretty much bang on 10 miles from Rootham at mile 60 to Ranscombe mile 70 and a half. And then it's another 10 and a half, I think possibly 10.9 miles to Detling from there. You are welcome to have crews still go to Bluebell Hill if you want to be seen during that stretch. But it will mean that you need to be a little bit more self-sufficient. Bear in mind the gap from Holly Hill to Bluebell Hill was over 11 miles anyway. It's better spaced, and the infrastructure of the race is going to be vastly improved by this change. So that we sorted out a couple of weeks ago once we'd spoken to the councils, and we're going to go ahead with that. For any of you who've run with Saxons, Vikings, Normans down in the Kent area, Travis uses Ranscombe Farm Reserve for some of his events, so it might be known to some of you already. Where his HQ is, that's where our checkpoint's going to be. Okay, no change to the Chiltern Wonderland 50 at all. No change to the Autumn 100. Timings, locations, checkpoints, all the same. So that covers our race season off, really. I'm just going to waffle on about finish line food and charitable donations, but now's the time to start posting questions if you've got any. So I can see there's about 40 of you online. If you've got questions, should be a chat box appear on the right-hand side. It's not filtered. You can go ahead and say whatever you want. Ask anything you want, anything Centurion. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the events. Obviously, this is event focused, but keen to answer any questions on here while they're burning, because I guarantee you're not the only person with that question. Finish line food. It's with great sadness that we say goodbye to Nick Sheffield from our events. Nick, as many of you know, is first off Drew's dad. Secondly, a qualified chef, incredibly amazing chef who, for as long as I can remember, has been cooking the finish line food at our races. Many of you will have eaten Nick's hot dogs or veggie dogs or his chili or his soup at Wendover, always made homemade with love and affection. And Nick is retiring. And I think we've done our best to get everything out of him that we can. It's bloody hard work. So we had a little leaving do Christmas dinner in December for Nick, and gave him a bottle of wine and went through some of his stories. But he's moving on. But we're delighted to announce in Nick's place one of our most loyal volunteers, longest standing, certainly in terms of amount of time he spent standing at checkpoints, is taking on Nick's role, and that is Ian Robertson. Any of you who've run our races over the last few years will know Ian. He's the guy who bakes the incredible plethora of all kinds of gluten-free, vegan, veg, and everything else as well for our checkpoints. He takes days off work before events to bake stuff for the checkpoints, and then puts everything out with the mini blackboards with the text on. And needless to say, he's one of our most popular volunteers. Well, Ian is going to come in and replace Nick, and he's going to do all of our finish line food. Okay, so one of our mandates has always been to provide hot food at the finish line. We think it's really important to give runners something good to eat before they head off. Helps with recovery, helps with the onward journey. And Ian will do an amazing job of that. He will still be providing food for charitable donations. So if you've got crew, friends or family who want to buy food from us at the end, they can do so. It's pretty low cost, but every penny that they donate, pay for the food, goes directly to charity. We don't take any of it. We don't offset any of the costs of the food and drink. We just give any donation straight to charity. Do make use of that, because over the course of the year, we can raise several £1,000s that way. Particularly at the South Downs events, we end up being able to sell lots of hot drinks and hot food to people who are hanging around, and that money goes to charity. And it ends up being little bits add up to quite a sizable donation. So do come and encourage your crew and friends and family to ask Ian and the finish line teams for hot food and hot drinks. That's everything I've got on my list. I'm seeing 0 questions. Somebody asked me a question so that I know it's working. I can't believe I've covered everything off that everyone wanted to ask. And I can see 46 of you online, so somebody must want to ask something. In doing this, I realize I'm opening myself up to some kind of abuse here, I suppose. But if nothing comes up in the next minute or so, I will wrap this up and save it and then share it online so that everybody can see back what it is I've been rambling on about. Just to say as well, finally, there is a Instagram live next week on March the 8th. So if you've forgotten something, it was pointed out to me. I set up a YouTube live. It was pointed out to me that we have like 11,000 followers on Instagram and that perhaps that would have been a better place to do it, by Natalie White, our very wise social media manager. So I'm doing it there too, but it will be the same ramble. So don't come a second time if you've been on this one. But if you think of a question later, you can ask it on there. But BM Piers says, Wendover's clashing with Race to the Stone. Sad. Not necessarily a question. There is no way, I'm afraid, of avoiding anything now. One thing that's acutely aware of as organisers is the saturation of the race calendar. And obviously Wendover's 50k and Race to the Stones have been in the, we're coming up on 8-9 years. Race to the Stones, possibly longer than that even. But 2 heritage races, and I tell you where it's getting bad is on the South Downs Way. We used to each organiser had their own race weekend. Well, these days there's like 2 or 3 happening every weekend, and it's unavoidable clashes, which is getting to be a bit of a problem. But these things will work themselves out in the long run. Bojanga, I would like to know if you have a qualifying race TP100. So if you head onto the website and click resources and scroll down to the tab saying qualification for 2023 events, it will show you what events will qualify you for the Thames Path 100. It'll be the same for next year. So all you need to have done really is finish a 50-mile race within the 3 previous years under 15 hours. Or there is slack in this if you did a mountainous 50 and it took you 20 hours and it was 10,000 feet of climb or 20,000 feet of climb. We absolutely take that into consideration too. There are a few other things that work if you travel a certain distance at a timed event or run it as part of a double Ironman or something. But there's no specific qualifying race. You're allowed to qualify wherever you like, essentially. Spencer says, nice office. Thanks, Spencer. Second home build for me. Stuck this in last summer. So, yeah, it makes a big difference. RFAB 100. Are running poles allowed in the Thames Path 100? Yes, they are. You are welcome to use them. Many do, many don't. You'll be... whatever you choose to do, you won't be alone. Okay, maybe less use them at the Thames Path and at the South and North Downs, but you're welcome to use them. Ian Robertson, our finish line chef. Do we know of any issues at Windsor on the Thames Path 100 due to the coronation weekend? At the moment, Ian, nothing that will deviate or divert our route. So the main get-together gathering is up at the castle and around the castle with some road closures, but it won't impact, as far as we know so far, it won't impact the route of the race through Windsor. What I would say is, if that does become a problem and we're informed, no matter when that is, we will work it out. We will work another way around so that the race can pass through that area. We're not about to just launch you into hordes of people. Needless to say, the riverside areas like Home Park will be busy, but they're not the centre of the activities happening in Windsor on that day. So we are going to proceed as planned. Terry Percy, when is your shop open next? I love you, Terry. Good question. Saturday, March the 11th. Come on down. We would love to see you. Myself, Drew, Lisa, some of the guys from Beta Running will be there. I tell you who'll be there. Spencer Milbury. He'll be propping up the coffee bar. What we do with the shop open day as well is slightly different each time. We've been doing guided runs, but if you come down about 1:30 on that Saturday, I'm going to do an hour on kit, what to choose, how to pack it, best stuff for our event. So if you've got specific questions, or you want to just, it's like a mini workshop basically during the early part of the afternoon. Check it out on the website. Mike Hogan, would you ever consider running the events in the opposite direction? Definitely Wendover, Mike. Substantially more difficult if you run the loop in reverse, as many here will attest to. Interesting question. The short answer is no, it's not something we've considered it on a logistical basis, but no, it's not something that I think you'll see from us. There's a slight caveat to that, but I can't tell you what that is yet. There you go. A dangle a piece of useless information at you. No, probably the simple answer is no, Mike. Chris, Peter. Hey, Chris. James, in handing over race directing RDs, are you going to continue handing over more races as time goes on? Short answer, Chris, is no plans to. So the thing for me is the 100-milers are intense, very long, sleep-deprived, anxiety-inducing, supremely stressful races. And I simply don't think it's right for me to pass the mantle on those to others. That's not to say it will never happen. Any one of the other RDs is totally capable. It's more about me and, me feeling that the burden of responsibility for something that's that big and goes on that long should be on me. I have the most experience doing it. And therefore, with the bigger races, the longer hundreds, it will stay as me. Certainly, I've got no plans to relinquish the RD ship of any of the hundreds in the coming years. Paul takes the North Downsway 50 and Wendover Woods 50. I think anyone who ran those events last year can see he is brilliant. That's why we brought him on board. Nikki and Drew have been there almost since the start. Nikki does the track 100 and the Wendover Woods 50K. And Drew takes Chiltern Wonderland 50. It's only right he takes that. It's his invention. So short answer, Chris, no plans for me to hand over any other RD roles. Spencer says he's booked the day off. Great. That's 3 or 4 messages so far. Els Classics, will you reset the Wendover Woods 50 record given the different time of year or keep the old one? Very, very good question. Something we've been discussing. I personally don't believe, it's highly controversial, this is. I don't believe the records are going to get broken, even though it's summer. I think summer is hotter, more humid, and will be more difficult as a result of that. Obviously, in the winter, you've got way more nighttime running, and that is obviously a serious consideration. We wouldn't rule out having 2 sets of records, but I think that would be in brackets. The course record will remain the course record. Els, I will say also, I won't ever rule out that race returning to November and July being the remainder of the festival. We simply need to, I'm sorry, I promised I'd never use the word festival about Wendover, the rest of the gathering. One thing is for sure, we won't be relinquishing those races, but where they sit in the calendar might change. We may revert to a July weekend for the 150K 10-mile kids races and the 50 in November next year. It depends on a whole bunch of stuff. If July turns out to be super popular and all the runners love it, we'll probably keep July. Okay, Spencer, yes, Wendy is harder in reverse, confirmed. Brian Drought, confirmed. David Root, so I guess CW50 is the last of the 50 Slam Series. Correct, David. Shame to lose the winter WW50, but it'll be lighter for longer at the weekend. I like your thinking, David. You're on the same page. Mike Hogan, are you going to run the piece of string anytime soon? Well, Mike, it hasn't been talked about, if I'm honest. James Adams probably needs to come out of retirement a little bit and get his act together and come up. I mean, he's the brains behind that one. We were just the vehicle for making it happen. A bit like the British Ultra Running podcast. Dan's all the talent, and I'm just there making sure things actually happen. So perhaps Drew and I should get on to James and prompt him and find out if there's an appetite for it. The best piece of strings that we had were when they ran alongside traditional events. It made it really fun, but it isn't easy from a logistical point of view. I'm going to say yes, it will happen again. I'm going to say it won't happen this year. Watch this space. Brian Drought, right. Leany finished winter 100 in daylight anyway. Well, that's a very good point. Right, guys, that's 40 minutes from me. Okay, Els Classics, can we have your prediction for the best HH time? So Drew and I are going to 100 Hills tomorrow. Drew's been doing a bit of gardening on the trail. I know he's borrowed a couple of saws to clear some foliage. We will be doing the same tomorrow, making sure the trails are as fast as possible for you guys, optimal speed. I'm going to say, Els, if it's dry-ish, i.e. it's not a wet, muddy mess, I'm going to say someone's going to break 4 hours. 3:48. How about that? Don't know on the women's. I'm thinking, I haven't honestly looked at the start list for each, but we'll do a preview. But there you go. I've stuck my neck on the line there. I bet someone runs 3.5 hours now. Right. Thanks everybody for joining. If you've watched this later, hopefully it was valuable to you. Any questions? info@centurionrunning.com. Comes to myself, Nikki, Drew, and Paul. One of us will pick it up, usually Nikki. But you can direct any questions in there. We're here for you. We're really looking forward to 100 Hills. We'll pray for sun. We had all but 40 minutes of dry weather last year. Let's hope it carries on. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Have a good evening.